Alrighty, hello and welcome everybody. Sorry for the late start to the qualifying proceedings on the stream's end, but we are here ready to go racing and in Fargone Racing GT Challenge Season 19. Qualifying has kicked off and is now underway in Indianapolis as we look to Steve Reese, who's about to kick off his first qualifying lap down towards turn 1. But we are here in the Brickyard for what is going to be quite a spectacular race. 17 cars on the grid, so a bit smaller than last week, at least for now, but we saw last week as well. A couple of drivers jumped in just a tiny bit late, but we are here and ready for all the action that comes our way, brought to you by Sensational TV. And I am Lindsay Muddle in the comms box, much like the other two rounds, as we've come to expect, and hopefully it doesn't change any time soon. So, the format for tonight's proceedings at Indianapolis is sprint. It's the exact same as Misano last week, but we don't have the dash of weather to go with it. So we have one 15-minute qualifying, which we are in right now. Then you have a reverse grid race number 2 with two 25-minute races. So, it is going to be quite the action-packed event, I would imagine, as Maddie currently sits on provisional pole with a 35.765 at this stage in qualifying, as Steve Reese crossed the line. Must have invalidated his lap time somewhere along the road, as he has not moved anywhere on the timing tower, at least at this stage, as Lee Perkins sets a lap, goes P number 6 at the moment. And Hugs moves up, and there we go. Never mind, I forgot where the lap finished and started. Steve Reese to the line, 4/10 behind Maddie with a 36.1. Takes P2 on the grid. My lack of Indianapolis knowledge might not be contestable, but I have done quite a few commentaries around this circuit in the past 2 months specifically, so hopefully I pick up my game just a little bit. But we are now 5 minutes into this qualifying session, under 10 minutes to go, as we look at Speed Racer, who currently sits in the P5 position with a 1 minute 37.187 in the Aston Martin GT3. We saw he had reasonable pace last time out in Misano. Can he carry that momentum through into the Brickyard? Let's see as he heads through the middle sector now. A reasonable split in the first, but still not improving to his previous best lap time as he heads into the braking zone now. Tip it in. It's really deceptively tricky. This corner, you got to carry a lot less speed than you think, and then this right left, you got to carry a lot more speed than you think. So it's quite the opposite between all of the corners, as through the right hand you can cut just a little bit more of that on the inside and then completely flat out, but the car does get just a little bit skatey, and then the second you get onto the tarmac, braking as hard as you can and back into a section of infield towards the hairpin, dive towards the apex, tip it in nicely, and then flat out towards the line. The car gets unstable through this section, but the Aston Martin planted as ever as he heads towards the line. It's going to be a 7/10 improvement from Speed Racer, and that is an impressive lap from the Aston Martin, but he holds station P5 and another 2/10 to Eda Nick in front of him, as we now look to Maddie, as Steve Reese has picked up the pace. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't even clock it, but he's on a 34.997 in that Ferrari 296. He's absolutely flying. He has nearly 8/10 over Maddie at this stage. Let's see what she has in response with 8 minutes to go in the Zoomies Mustang. Just sweeping through the sectors now. Hold it tight to the left and then open up the right and get ready to slingshot onto a straight. This is where the Mustang will make back its lap time and completely flat out down the straight, as you would expect, as it is just a straight line. Braking just before the start of the curb on the right-hand side. Tip it through. Just clip the inside curb if you dare, and then keep it completely committed through this section of racetrack. You've just got to flick the steering wheel around a little bit and then power down, and now completely flat out as Steve Reese there on the side of the track, just letting Maddie through. She is currently 3/10 up with a sector to go. Heavy on the anchors. The Mustang slows down very nicely at this corner and then get it back across, tip it in, to the hairpin. It's these slow speed corners where the Mustang will lose out its lap time, but it's a great hairpin for Maddie, but her exit is a little bit compromised from the touch of the grass, but it is going to be a 4.5 improvement from Maddie as she crosses the line and moves herself closer to Steve Reese, and now she is 0.3 back, so she's still going to need to pull out something quite special if she wants to get into that first place. And now we move to another contender that we're getting used to seeing further up the sharp end this season, Longy. He's not as close to Maddie and Steve-O as he has been on previous occasions this season, but there's still time to go in qualifying, and he is in the third sector, 0.4 up on his previous best. So let's see if he can place himself above Hoggy. It looks likely, but Hoggy also improving by quite a significant margin at this stage. Who improves more is yet to be seen. So Longy in the McLaren, heading towards the line now. What's it going to be? It is going to be a 1 minute 35.650. 0.3 behind Maddie, 0.6 behind Steve-O, and that is a very impressive lap time from the McLaren, as he has improved a lot this season, as now Hoggy is going to give it his best go through the final sector towards the final corner. It's not looking like he's going to improve. He was 0.4 up earlier on in the lap, but unfortunately for him, he bled that lap time out through the rest of it, as across the line it isn't going to be an improvement from Hoggy, and he'll have to settle for the lap time he has at this current stage. As now we go to Lee Perkins. No, he's in the pit lane. We go to Hugs in the McLaren 720 SGT3 Evo, your race 2 winner at Misano. The only driver to beat Steve Reese this season so far for a race win. And will he continue that trend tonight? First race, potentially not. I think we'll see Maddie and Steve Reese. Speaking of Maddie, she retakes provisional pole by 0.04 of a second, and Stephen Reese responds and takes pole back by 1/10.5 just over, and that is impressive there from Steve Reese, and they're having a scrap away here in this qualifying session, and it just makes the race feel that much more exciting when you have a close qualifying. As Maddie is back in the pit lane, she will go out again with fresh tyres, as Hugs currently 0.3 down. But we know how the race 1 will finish, sort of. Obviously, you can't guarantee anything in the world of motorsport, but you know that Steve Reese, Maddie, and Longy and Hoggy and the usual suspects will be up there to some capacity if there isn't a crash. And then the second race, that's where it all is thrown out the window. That is where you'll see the likes of Hugs try and snatch a win again. But if he goes further up the field, it could be a very different story to last time out in Misano. It's also not wet this time, so a lot of the drivers will be bunched up closer together as he crosses the line. Doesn't improve on his previous best. Meanwhile, Speed Racer is up on his previous best in the Aston Martin GT3, and he is pushing towards the third sector. Heavy on the anchors here, and just a little bit of a slide there on the entry, but it tipped him through nicely. He's 0.3 up on his previous best. This would put him into the P4 place if he can just bring this home, but he bled a lot of lap time on the exit of the hairpin as he now rounds the final corner. It's only going to be a 10th improvement. Will it be enough to beat Hoggy to P4 as he crosses the line now across the bricks? And no, not quite. He is just 0.06 behind Hoggy at this stage, so the battle for P4 in qualifying well and truly on, as Hugs the only driver on a lap currently that is on a flyer that's improving, and he's doing very well for himself in this McLaren with 3.5 minutes to go. Qualifying is reaching its end point. Maddie is out on the track. Steve-O currently in the pit lane. If he goes out again, it'll be very, very late, and I don't think he will. I think he's going to be content with his lap at this stage. It's kind of too late to go out and get the temp and the tyres you need to pull it off, as Hugs is improving at a steady rate. He is currently 0.2 up on his previous best lap time as he heads through the hairpin. He lost a little bit of time here on his previous attempt. So what's he going to do? Towards the line now in the McLaren. Rounding the final corner. Run it out as wide as you dare. Carry the speed and across the brick finish line. What's it going to be for Hugs? It will put himself ahead of Parker. And it is going to be a 36. No, Parker responds back, takes it back as we now move to Maddie, and we are going to do an onboard lap with the Ford Mustang here around Indianapolis, And down to first gear goes Maddie. Tip it in. She only needs to find it's just over a 10.5 to snatch provisional pole back from Steve Reese as she pushes now through the long right-hander. Dab of the brakes. You gotta have confidence in your car and then pick up the power nice and early. Let's see, she runs out very wide and then completely flat through the right-hander. If she had the grip underneath her, she's currently 2/10 down, so I'd say this lap is slipping away from her, but she has one more chance to pull it off in this qualifying session. One more lap after this one as we'll go back off board. Steve Reese supporting Maddie, so the man on provisional pole saying she's going to do it surely. Well, let's see how it all unfolds. But while we wait for her to begin another lap, let's look at Hoggy, who's just a little bit further up the road. He is pushing as hard as he possibly can here in the dying stages. He has Speed Racer putting on the lap time pressure behind, but currently at the rate he's improving, he should take the P4 as long as Speed Racer doesn't pull out the lap of his life here as he's pushing into the final sector now. Tip it in through the right. Prepare yourself for the hairpin. Exit speed is crucial at this stage of the lap. And then the run towards the line. It's going to be nearly a 3/10 improvement, but not quite for Hoggy as he is rounding onto the straight. And across the line goes the Ferrari now, and he will improve by 0.2 of a second. So now back to Maddie as she begins her final qualifying lap here in the Brickyard, pushing down towards turn 1. Spot your braking point up on the wall there, and then heavy on the anchors before tipping it down towards turn 1, touching the curb there, and then over the left-hand side. You've got to trust your car on the power here, and then hold it right, and then open up the entry through the next medium speed right-hander. Very tricky corner. Super easy to understeer out wide like Maddie did on her previous attempt, but this time she keeps it clean. She's not up on her first sector split, but she is even with it as she tiptoes her way through the long left-hander. Keep it tight. A little bit of a slide there, but she kept the minimum speed up. She is bang on matching her previous best lap time here as she heads onto the straight into the middle sector and getting ready for braking at the end of the straight. Get on the anchors, slow down as much as you feel you need to, tip it through, and then keep it over the top of this curb. The Mustang, no complaints at all over the curbs, and then you get ready, tip it across, and then just power out, and she has held that together very nicely, but still not up. At this stage, she would need a very fast final section. She needs to find nearly 0.2 of a second if she wants to knock Steve-O off off his pedestal. At this stage, can Maddie snatch pole position in the last possible sector on her last possible lap? One more run towards the line. She is a 10th up. Will it be enough to beat Steve-O for pole, or will it be the Ferrari on pole once again in Fargone? She heads towards the line as tight as she can take it, and across the line it's a 200th improvement, but Stephen Reese is going to be your man on pole position with Maddie alongside. Longy is going to hold on to the P3 place as he crosses the line. No improvement in the final lap. But what an end to that qualifying session it was. You couldn't ask for it to be any closer in the dying stages. Maddie nearly had it, but she lost it through the final corner of the lap. A little bit of a snap, and she lost the extra 10th she had. It was a top effort from Maddie to control and hold on to the P2 place, but Steve-O takes the pole with a 1 minute 34.970. Maddie alongside on the first row. Then you have Longy and Hoggy on the second row. Then Speed Racer, Eda, Nick, Parker, Hugs, Lee Perkins, Swooper, Force, Boost, Tobasiah, Ross, Exiled Reaper, Disco Derek, and Lee rounds out your qualifying order. And that is an absolutely fantastic qualifying session to set us up for the first race of 2 of the night here in Fargone GT Challenge Season 19. As we head towards the race now. So the drivers will be gearing up, getting their race setups on, and preparing themselves for the race ahead of them. So we are on the grid, and it's going to be nighttime here. It is a 7 p.m. or no, sorry, 8 p.m. race here for race number 1 in Indianapolis. And we see the duo we've come to expect on the front row. We see these two scrapping in and out, week out all of the time. And once again, they find themselves alongside each other. Steve Reese and Maddie locked at the hip, it feels like, in this series. Whether it be this season, last season. We've only had 3 rounds of this season, and most of them they've started together on the front row, except for I think it was last... Well, to be fair, we've only had 3 rounds, so most of them being 2 out of 3. But, yeah, a usual suspect front row of the grid as we have a minute and a half until the racing action. So, little bit of a fact sheet I have kind of not really whipped up. I stole it off Wikipedia. So, brick start finish line as you've come to expect here in the Brickyard at Indianapolis. It's a 2.439 terrible units lap, so miles, and that is for the normal people 3.925 kilometer lap and 14 corners to negotiate. The lap record here isn't really relevant to tonight, but a 109.3888 set by Joseph Newgarden in a Dallara DW12 Indy car in 2017, as there is 45 seconds until the race start. And the question is, who is going to come out on top? Or do you even want to come out on top? After what we saw last time out in Misano with the reverse grid race causing so much carnage, do you want to prioritize the second race? Or will you just go for glory? These two will definitely be going for glory. You don't start on 1 and 2 on the grid for a reason, but the reverse grid definitely calls a bit of strategy into it. If you're further in that mid-pack, do you just want to drop back a bit and take advantage of the fact that you could start higher up in the next race, or will you just give it the beans, get the highest possible position you can? So, we begin the formation sector now. They just have the third sector to negotiate, going slowly, warming up their brakes, their tyres as much as they possibly can. Very difficult to do here on ACC, but they are going to get ready for racing in the Brickyard. So, the first 2 rows of the 2, we're going to keep the Hawkeye on here on the race start. So you have Steve Reese and Maddie and Longy and Hoggy alongside each other as they get ready to go racing. We know that Maddie typically does get worse starts than Steve Reese, but also since the car change from the McLaren to the Ferrari this season, Steve-O's pace has been a lot better, but because of the turbo on that Ferrari, his starts aren't as good as they once were last season. So Maddie and Steve Reese find themselves alongside each other for the race start in Indianapolis. The green flags ready to fly, the green lights ready to illuminate here, and the stage is set for race number 1 at 8:03 p.m. in-game time. We get ready for the racing as they head towards the brick racing line, and they are underway for racing here in Fargone Racing round number 3 at Indianapolis, and Maddie is inching ahead of Steve-O as they head down towards turn 1, and now Steve-O is going to find himself under pressure from Longy as they head into the braking zone in the background. Speed Racer goes down the inside of Hoggy, and the Aston Martin gets off to a good start, but can he continue to hold that on as he's trying to hold on and get past Hoggy? No, he can't, but he does hold the P5 place as Hoggy tries to show the nose on Longy. Meanwhile, Eda Nick is under pressure as well from Parker behind as they finish the first sector in a corner's time, and that was a brilliant start from Maddie to get the jump on Steve Reese, and that is not something we've seen in quite a while, but Steve-O gets pipped on the start, and that was an absolutely phenomenal reaction time from Maddie. Longy didn't get a bad start either, but now he's dropping back from Steve Reese. The gap between Maddie and Steve-O is 0.8 of a second and closing. The gap between Steve-O to Longy is over 1.4 already, so those two already showing that they're in a class of their own, and we're not even a minute and a half into this race so far. So Longy is just going to be defending against Hoggy. I think that's his main goal, and just hope the other two in front continue to battle. But Maddie has pulled a significant gap over Steve-O. The gap 1.2 seconds as they head into the braking zone, and lap 1 is not even concluded yet. But in this third sector, that's where the Ferrari makes its time back. But Steve-O's going to be under quite a lot of pressure in this scenario. He's been overtaken by a Ford Mustang. That makes it ever so more tricky to overtake on ACC. The gap 0.5 of a second across the line, so the third sector was very strong for Steve Reese, but definitely on the back foot. A Ferrari trying to overtake a Ford Mustang is like being in an old Fiat Abarth trying to overtake a current day V8 supercar. It's not really possible, but it can potentially happen if things go wrong. But that Mustang's so quick in a straight line, it's going to take a mistake from Maddie to try and be overtaken by Steve Reese, but she'll just be content out the front. She's just going to hold on. Tyre wear is not the nicest around this circuit with all the long corners. The tyres do chew away just a little bit, even in a 25-minute race, so it's all going to be down to tyre preservation as well, and pure pace while preserving your tyres as well. As I've just been told in the chat that the GT3 lap record is a 1 minute 33.456, because the second one I've been given is a 1 minute 22.564, which isn't possible in a GT3 car around this track. Maybe potentially it was modified, but yeah, 22s are not possible. Different layouts as well, though. This specific GT World Challenge layout is different to the normal Indianapolis layout. So that definitely plays a factor into it too, and that's something that I think a lot of drivers get confused about when they jump onto ACC. They find themselves going to head straight into the very fast chicane after turn number 3, and it's a very cool chicane. You go completely flat over the top of the two curves, your car bounces away and you head onto the straight. No, on ACC you have to sweep through a very, very slow right into a left-hander, and then you run onto the straight with a slow right that's quite annoying to drive, which definitely makes this track just a little bit more tricky on ACC as they sweep through the said right-hander now. And Maddie just controlling this race. I think that she's so strong in the first and second sector. Steve-O makes up all of his lap time when they head into the third sector, which is where the Ferrari is more nimble. And they head now down the straight. We are nearly 4.5 minutes into this race as the timer ticking down quite quickly in the Brickyard. And Steve-O currently has the fast lap of the race with a 1 minute 35.767. But that's very, very much not separated from Maddie's best lap, which is a 35.780. So these two, very, very similar pace here in Indianapolis. Nothing separating them as they are heading into the third. This is where the Ferrari will claw back its time. It looks very treacherous for Steve-O, nearly dropping outside a second through the first two, but then in the third, and when you cross the line, you see that the gap closes in by several tenths of a second. I think the gap across the line will be 7 tenths, give or take, or maybe Maddie has held station on lap time. This time she has improved by 3 tenths of a second. She will take the fastest lap of the race, a 35.4. Steve-O does a 35.8, so he didn't gain that much time, and Maddie is absolutely loving being out in the lead, I'm sure, right now. Limited pressure being put on by Steve-O as well, so she'll just be soaking it up at the moment, driving out the front. Somebody who isn't soaking it up, though, who has a lot of pressure behind them, is Longy, who has Hoggy behind, trying to attack. These two have battled countless times through last season and into this one, but the Ferrari and the McLaren definitely are about to go at it. They are separated by only a couple tenths of a second here in Indianapolis, and they are not letting it go. Hoggy was very close behind Longy in that first corner to begin lap number 3, and they're still going to continue pushing away at it. But the McLaren does have the upper hand through the first sector, and he's just holding on. No other super close battles going on up and down the grid at the moment. Nothing too much to look at outside the top 4, but these battles are more than sufficient. Nonetheless, these two are going to continue going at it, and we are going to get underway well and truly quickly, and we are going to go on board with the Ferrari of Hoggy here in Indianapolis. It's just going to be a pure onboard. Let's see if the commentator's onboard curse continues. Every single time except one lap last race that I did on board, the driver behind loses time to the car in front. Let's see if that theme continues, as here's a lap on board with Hoggy of Indianapolis. that was an onboard lap of Indianapolis with Hoggy, and it was going so well. The commentator's curse nearly didn't hit. He was absolutely flying behind his counterpart in battle, and then he took a trip onto the grass on the outside in the end of Sector 2. And that is definitely a scary moment to have, especially on a simulator like ACC, where the grass is effectively the death sentence. Your car bounces up and down like it's allergic to grass. It's obviously not the optimal way to go through a corner in real life either, but on ACC it is a very violent experience going over a patch of grass that normally ends up in a spin. But a talking point right now, the leaders weren't separated by that much earlier on, but obviously it was early days. But Maddie and Steve Reese are separated by 2.3 seconds. Maddie is comfortably the fastest car on the grid. She is flying with a 34.9 being her best lap, and Steve Reese is a 35.6. So she is absolutely flying in the Mustang. This is not just a Mustang thing though, this is all driver end. And that doesn't come lightly from me. I always try to pin it on the Mustang, but obviously Maddie, a phenomenal driver. And she's absolutely flying. This is very much a track that's a driver end circuit. You do gain a bit of time, but you gain that from being in other cars as well. This track, the engine power isn't so powerful. So there's only 2 big acceleration zones and 2 big straights on the track. So this is just a phenomenal drive to watch from Maddie. And it's completely outright pace in that Ford Mustang. She is controlling the race more than comfortably as we are 10 minutes in to this race. The gap between the leaders is 2.3 seconds. So there'd have to be a mistake for Maddie if anything is going to change as we move further down the order. Tobasaya is in a nice little battle with Hugs, who's going to look down the inside at turn 1, potentially eat a nick also in the background. So this is a 3-way fight for the P9 position at this stage. It's a BMW sandwich with a McLaren in the middle. So Tobasaya leading this one from Hugs, as that is a car off the track. That is Lee Perkins in the sensational liveried BMW, who's now going to join into this party as well. And that is also Forces in front of them as well. This is now going to be the potential for a 5-car train if all closes up. It's still going to be a monumental battle as they head onto the straight. Tobasaya is going to be under a lot of pressure here from Hugs as they head towards the braking zone. He's defensive. Hugs looks to the inside. Is he going to go down the inside? Yes, he does. The McLaren gets to the apex first and sweeps into P number 9. And now next up on his list is Lee Perkins in the sensational BMW, who's pushing along, trying to catch back up to Force in that Ferrari 296. But he also has a McLaren now hounding the back of him, putting the pressure on here with 13 and a bit minutes to go in this race. It's all kicking off here for the P7 position at this stage of the race. This is very good position to be in. This is where you want to be sitting yourself if you're in this mid-pack for a reverse grid race, because you don't really lose or gain that much from finishing P7 or P8. You start in pretty much the exact same place as you finished, or if not actually with a 17-car grid. P number 8 is basically the place to be, and you won't lose any places. But no matter what, this little train here won't really move around too much, as they are the mid-pack. So for race 2, this is where you need to be setting yourself up, and you need to be thinking, do I want to start ahead of this person for the next race, or do I want to just get the position now and start behind them if I can, as that is what's going to be going through all these drivers' heads at the moment. As Tash asks, is dirty air a factor for GT3 cars? Not really. There's there obviously is dirty air. There's a tiny bit, but these cars don't have enough aero for it to make a great deal of a difference in the grand scheme of things. So it is all pure pace for Maddie as we are halfway through this race. There is 12.5 minutes to go, and there's still plenty of action to be witnessed, with Lee Perkins leading a little train. Forces pulling away just a little bit. So this is a train for P8 as Lee Perkins makes a little bit of a mistake there. Hugs trying to capitalize, but isn't closing up quite enough to try and make a move. But meanwhile, he is pulling a little bit of a gap to Tobesire. So the McLaren doing very well for himself to pull away from the train he was just in. Meanwhile, Tobesire and Eden Nick are swapping around, and that's Eden Nick through on Tobesire, which has happened in the last sector, which I missed because I'm the equivalent of a Monaco camera director in F1. Absolutely useless. But yeah, Tobesire losing the place to Eden Nick as they head on to the next lap. So we'll go back to Lee Perkins, who's under an immense amount of pressure. He runs wide through turn 1. Hugs has a phenomenal run here as they head through the end of the first sector. And the BMW does have the straight line speed over the McLaren, but the cornering is where it's a little bit of a slug, but it's very stable. He's going to have to use the M4's consistency to his advantage if he wants to hold on to the place. He's going to be hounded for the next 11 minutes. He's got to get a good exit onto the straight. It looks like he's got a brilliant run off the corner, and he has made a massive mistake there on the traction. That allows Hugs to close in quite a significant margin, but I don't think he's close enough to go for a move. Lee Perkins very lucky to get away with a mistake like that, but now he runs deep out of the hairpin and now through the right-left section. This is allowing Eden Nick to close up into this battle as well. Tobesire's dropped off the back, but this is Lee Perkins crumbling under the pressure here with 10.5 minutes to go. Hugs hunting a move as they head through the long right-hander. This is not a place to go for an overtake. Eden Nick trying to size it up on Hugs though. He does commit down the inside, has to back out on the apex. That allows Tobesire to close up just a little bit in the background, but this battle is absolutely kicking off here with 10 minutes remaining. Perkins gets away unscathed after a plethora of mistakes on lap 9. So he is going to have to keep his wits about him if he wants to hold on to this position. He can't keep making detrimental mistakes like that if he wants to hold on to the P8 position, especially with a hammering Hugs behind as they head onto the 10th lap of this race. So Hugs pushing away nicely here through the first sector. This is where he gains his lap time. This is where Perkins drops off just that little bit, but that time around Hugs did run a little bit wide, but it does open up the next section of the racetrack for him. Eden Nick is also thinking about getting a nose in here, I think, and they are closing into the Ferrari of Force as well, which they haven't done the past few laps, but they are now doing that. As Perkins goes a little bit wide, Eden Nick also trying to show the nose here as they head down the straight. Will Hugs go for it? No, he doesn't. Eden Nick also thought about going for it. They're all trying to show the nose at the same time here in this 3-car battle for 8th position, but they're not giving up. They are constantly fighting hammer and tong here in these GT3 cars. This is what GT racing is all about. This is why it is producing some of the best racing you can imagine in both the real world and on the sim at the moment. GT3s are just so close together, so easy to battle with. You just have to fight and fight and fight, and eventually you'll find yourself in a reasonable position, and that's what's such an appeal about them at this stage in the past few years, and even this year, and I'm sure the next as well. Such a popular category for a reason, and now Perkins is closed up to the back of Force. This is now a 4-car train for P7. Perkins hunting a move on the outside of turn 1 here. This could allow him to move up into 7th place and get Hugs off his back. They're wheel to wheel as they head towards the apex. So is Tobesire and Hugs in the background as well, as that is Perkins through on Force, and now Hugs just about holds off from Eden Nick as they head through the first sector, but now on his radar is Force as they head through the first sector. So now the battle changes entirely, and now Eden Nick finds himself down the inside of the fast right. That's an aggressive place to try and put the nose in, but he does anyway. Now he tries to get the run back underneath Hugs, but he's not able to do it. Hugs defending for his absolute life, but this is a monumental battle between these 4 going on all at once. Hugs gets a great run into the straight. Force not so much, so now Hugs could find himself getting a buffer between himself and Eden Nick as they head down towards the braking zone. Will the McLaren sit behind? Yes, he will, and he's just going to hold on to the P9 and pressure the Ferrari later down the line, but Perkins now, the car leading this train at this stage. So very much an impressive performance from Lee Perkins to get it done the long way round of turn number 1. He just let the rest of the first sector come to him, and then Eden Nick had the aggression behind as well to try to go down the inside of the sweeping right. Very aggressive but that's what we've seen from Nick in the past. He has no bounds to his confidence. He knows he can try and put a nose in, and the respectful space will be left. And that is why he's so good at racing in battles like this, as we'll go on board with Hugs as he's pushing along behind Force. Can he pull anything off in the McLaren? Pushing hard down towards turn 1. Here is an onboard lap of Indianapolis in the McLaren 720S GT3 Evo. So spot your braking point down towards turn 1, 400 on the anchors. Use the ABS to slow the car down. First gear, and then hold it tight through the next left, and then power out. Use the traction control. First gear, second gear, up the gears all the way to third, and then down to second with a dab of the brakes through the right, and then smoothly transition back onto the power. It's a very balanced game here around Indianapolis. You can never be coasting. You've always got to be on the brakes or on the throttle, but neither of them at the same time, or both off at the same time. It's a balancing act here in Indianapolis, and he's doing it very well. First gear through the right towards the straight, and now in the slipstream of Force as they head down towards the braking zone. It's not close enough to go for a move, but braking at the crowd strike sign on the right hand side just after the curb begins, and then push hard. Force in front of his made a mistake. That allows Lee Perkins to run away just a little bit, and Hugs is now all over the back of the Ferrari. He has a much wider open run through the right. He gets an amazing exit compared to Force. Is he close enough to go for a move towards the braking zone? It's an unorthodox place to go for a move, but he does pull right, and he is going to stick a nose down the inside, but he isn't able to pull it off. Nick says thank you very much. He tried to invite himself into the party as well here with 5 minutes to go. This battle for P7 not slowing down in any capacity at all here, as Steve Reese has also closed back into Matty. He's back within a second up the front, but we're going to stay with this battle unless it gets much closer between the leaders, which it looks like it is. We'll go to the next lap as this is really heating up here for the P7 position, but I think further up the front, Maddie potentially pushed too hard too early and has cooked her tyres just a little bit. She's dropping off the pace compared to Steve-O very significantly. We know the Ferrari's better on its tyres up the front. That's also what we're seeing right now. The BMW pulling away from the Ferrari because it's just a little bit better on tyres, and the McLaren in this train is the worst on the tyres of the lot. The BMW and the Ferrari very, very good in their tyres. The McLaren not bad on its tyres either, but not as good as these two, and Perkins just using that to get a little bit of a gap. Hugs is opening the corners up so much more than Force. Lap in, lap out. It's only a matter of time before he goes for a move, and it looks like now is the time as he goes to the left-hand side down the straight. Force defending just a little bit towards the apex they go. Force holding on. Nick also sitting behind as there's no place to go for a move through this single file sector, but Hugs looked like he had the opportunity, couldn't pull it off, and he goes very tight. That's an Aston Martin slow. That is a lap down marker of Lee though, so nothing too much to scoff about at this stage as Maddie and Steve Reese are separating once again. So it looks like maybe a mistake from Maddie was made as Nick thought about going down the inside of Hugs, but they're separating once again here in the dying stages, so we won't go back to them at this stage. This battle is too good to take our eyes off as they head through towards lap number 14 of the race, and there is 3.5 minutes to go. Perkins is checked out. He is 8/10 up the road from Force, but can Hugs get the P8 position going into race number 2? That would keep him, I believe, in position for the second race with the reverse grid. It'll be interesting to see how it all lines up next race, but we know one thing's for sure: Maddie or Steve Reese will be the one starting in P17, and Swooper will more than likely be starting well up the front in his BMW, so that's going to be a chaotic race start next race. Hugs so close behind Force, but not as close as he was last lap. Meanwhile, Nick is closer to Hugs than he was last lap. We've seen Nick showing the nose time and time again, as that's a massive spin there from Force, and also Lee Perkins going a bit slowly as well, and that is a very big moment. Now Nick sees his chance to strike. He goes over right before Hugs. Hugs goes defensive but also tries to attack Perkins at the same time. I'd love to see how that all kicked off, as we'll go back to Force and we're going to get a replay going through the left-hander. He's closing up to Perkins a lot. Perkins made a mistake and then he tried to dive the inside. That was a very risky move and it played off exactly how you'd expect it to in a situation like that. He tried to make it stick after a mistake from Perkins, and it all went wrong, which is exactly what you'd expect when you go for a move so late like that. As the replay will end in a moment's time, and we are back to the live action. Nick opening up the straight so much more than the two in front of him, just pushing as hard as he possibly can. The leaders within a second of each other, as well as Longy and Speed Racer being in quite close contention, as Eda Nick is looking down the inside but isn't able to break late enough to get up the inside of Hugs at this point. As he continues to try and hunt it move, Hugs has been so impressive in this dying stage with a minute and a half to go. This is the penultimate lap of the race. Next lap will be the last lap of the race, as cars number 4 and 6 are in the third sector, as these guys are in the first. So very interesting to see the difference in pace, but Hugs is practically pushing Perkins through the corners at this point. It was Force a couple of laps ago, and now it's back to being attacking Perkins. Can he try and make anything stick for the P7 position? He doesn't have the run, but the leader is on the last lap of the race. So we'll now move back up to the front. Maddie is leading controllingly, but they have a lapped car in front of them. It doesn't compromise Maddie too much. They go off the track, go off the line, and get out of the way of Steve-O as well. Steve-O very close behind Maddie, but not close enough. It's not striking distance. 9/10 is not enough. Maddie pulled a massive gap at the start of the race, over 2.5 seconds. She had the outright pace from the get-go in this race, but then Steve-O started to claw back in. Maddie cooked her tyres, I think, just a little bit, and Steve-O started crawling and crawling and crawling closer and closer. But since he got within a second once, Maddie has been holding him at bay at about that 0.7 to 1 second mark. So as long as she negotiates the next a sector and a half with precision, she should take home the race 1 win and be the second driver that isn't Steve-O to pick up a win this season. So she heads towards the end of the second sector now. She pushes through the right-hander. Steve-O not pushing overly hard. He knows he just needs to bring it to the line now. Maddie completely flat through the right to begin the final sector of the final lap. She's driven absolutely phenomenally in this Ford Mustang from start to finish of the race. She had a little bit of pressure early on and a little bit of pressure at the end, but she's kept a cool head. She's going to round the penultimate corner, and now, if all goes well, she is going to round the final corner and be victorious in Indianapolis. She is going to take the race win in GT Challenge Season 19, race number 3, and round number 3 in race 1 at Indianapolis. She knocks out the race win, but now back towards this battle for the P7 spot. It looks like Perkins is going to hold on, but Eden Nick did get past Hugs at one stage, so now there's a sector to go, and it's BMW versus BMW. Maddie, a phenomenal drive to take the win. Can we see something of a masterclass from Eden Nick as he heads into the third sector? Surely he's got to have a go. Perkins defending the inside. Can Eden Nick get 2 in 1 lap? He's trying to get the long way round. The road runs out and into the hairpin. He ran the long way round again as he heads towards the final corner. It's looking unlikely that he'll get it, but it was a great final lap from him to get the P8. Nearly picked up the P7. Perkins will get P7. Eden Nick will get P8. Hugs will get P9 after it looked so likely that he was going to get P number 8. Toba Sire will come home to get P10, but what a drive from everybody involved in race number 1, and we still have another one ahead of us soon enough. And what an ending to a race it was from both ends. The 1 and 2 battle and this P7 battle was absolutely phenomenal throughout, and that is race 1 almost completed. 2 more cars to cross the line, and then we'll get the final race order. Absolutely sensational stuff in race number 1. So we just wait for Lee to cross the line in the 510 Aston Martin, and the results will tick up now. So Maddie takes the win with the fastest lap from Steve-O, and then Longy, Speed Racer, Hoggy gets P5. Parker rounds out the top 6. Then Perkins, Eden Nick, Hugs all had a monumental battle, but that is the order they end out. And then you have Toba Sire rounding out the top 10. Then Force, Boost, Reaper, Ross, Lee, and Swooper finishes your grid for race number 1. And now we get ready to go into race number 2, a reverse grid. We will have a server restart in the meantime. So quickly, let me let me see if I can quickly sort something out for in between sessions, because I forgot to do it like I said I would. As Night Tash, thanks for the compliment. Alrighty, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. So, the break in between races is complete, and now we are here for racing action once again in Fargone Racing GT Challenge season number 19. And we are here for race number 2 of 2, reverse grid. So, everything is going to kick off shortly. So, Swooper is your car on pole position. And then Lee, Ross, Reaper, Disco Derek is your P5 car. Then you have Boost, and then Force, Tobasaya, Hugs, still together on the grid. Eden Nick also as well as Lee Perkins. Then you have Parker, Hoggy, Speed Racer, Longy, Reese, and Maddie are your 3 at the back to fight right through the field. As we saw last race, those 3 trying to get through the field or last round in Misano. So it's all going to kick off in a couple of moments' time. So a minute until we get the racing action once again in round number 3 in Indianapolis. So Swooper, car number 27, alongside Lee in the 510 John Deere livery. Aston Martin. It is going to be a chaotic race start. It always is in reverse grids. And it is going to be quite an exciting one. So 30 seconds until we get ready to go racing. So all the drivers on the grid, get ready to go to the 1 sector formation. Well, not even, I was going to say formation lap, 1 sector formation lap. No, it's the formation sector for race number 2. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, 3, 2, 1, and the lights turn on, the engines go on, and Swooper at any point now can take away the grid for the formation sector. So here we go. Swooper and Lee alongside each other, then Dave Ross and Reaper on the second row as the green flags are going to be getting ready to fly. All the marshals getting ready to fly them, and the green lights will have somebody behind a button box somewhere getting ready to set them off as we get ready to go racing in Indianapolis. 2 corners to go before race 2 begins. And Swooper's got to get back alongside Lee. And now it's probably 10 seconds until we go racing. So, green flags, ready to fly. Green lights, ready to illuminate. Ready here in the Brickyard for race 2 at Indianapolis. Here we go. BMW and Astons on the front row of the grid as the green flags are about to go now. And we are underway, and Lee gets a drive-through off the start. Swooper gets a good start. He's going to inch ahead of Lee as they head down towards turn 1. Ross as well inching ahead of Exiled Reaper, who jumped the start as well. Swooper's going to go down the inside there, wheel to wheel, as they head through turn 1. Same with Ross and Reaper, and that is Lee very wide in the Aston Martin, and Ross also getting the place. So Ross takes P2, Swooper still leading the way. So that is a very good start from the both of them. Meanwhile, Reaper also has been overtaken by the Ferrari of Boost, and it's all Constantining up here. Lee Perkins has contact through the 3rd corner on the lap as well. He is right in the thick of it. There's a Mercedes as well. That's 3 wide in the background. That couldn't have ended well. As well in the background, Maddie trying to make up moves as they finish the 3rd sector. So it's Swooper from Lee. That's Hugs spun around in the background. Reese is trying to go the long way round of Hoggy to get the place. Ferrari versus Ferrari. Longy also trying to go the long way round of Force. He'll get the inside for the straight. So this is the battles we want to be looking at. Maddie on the outside of Parker as they head through the 2nd sector. She's going to get it done, and now she's going to find herself battling with Hoggy and Reese for the place as well, but Reese still isn't through of Hoggy just yet, and now Maddie sweeps through after Hoggy runs wide, and now Hoggy's right at the back of Longy. These guys are going right at it as they battle away here on the first lap. It's all kicking off, and now they have a Mercedes and a BMW in front of them. Lee Perkins, Eda Nick as well in that little train as well. The Mercedes being Disco Derek, as that's a massive Constantina effect, but Swoop is going to continue to lead away the first lap. Reese is the car who gained the most off the backpack. He's gone from P17 to P10, and he's not done just yet. He's going to go the long way round of Force here, and he's going to go side by side down the straight. Ferrari versus Ferrari. He's going to get that one done. Will Maddie now also size up a move down the inside of the Ferrari? Yes, she will. She's going to go down the inside of Force as they head into turn one. There's wheel banging there. Steve also had to avoid it. Now it's 3 wide. Maddie, Longy and Force all wheel to wheel as they head through the right-hander. Hoggy, the biggest winner of that one. And now Longy tries to stick the nose in as well through the third corner. They're still scrapping away as they head through the sweepers now. We are 1 lap into this race and it's already all kicking off. The leaders getting through a lot quicker than they did in Misano because it's not wet. They have so much more confidence underneath themselves as Steve-O goes right around the outside on a Mercedes of Disco Derek down the straight. Hoggy will be the next one to attack the Mercedes. Definitely not the strongest car in the world, but it's not weak either. It's good to see one on the grid as Force tried the long way round. Maddie's on the inside of Force. Meanwhile, Hoggy's trying it the long way round of the next sector. Maddie sticking the nose in on Force as well. She's now going to get the cutback on the exit, and she's going to sweep through. Force runs wide. Longy finds himself in the fray as well now as they head through the long sweeping right-hander. There was a McLaren of Parker as well who had a half spin and was under pressure, and meanwhile Maddie is going down. Oh no, Maddie's in a wall. I would love to know what happened. Maddie has found the barrier as here is the helicam at the moment, so it was all kicking off. Hoggy was trying the outside move on Derek. Maddie was trying the inside move, and then the cutback on the Ferrari of Force. She got the cutback done, and then she had the run on Hoggy and Derek as well. She goes down the inside of the sweeper. She's going to get that one done on Hoggy, and then she's going to go try it down the inside. Oh no, that's really poor. Hoggy tried to get a late inside move on Maddie, on Disco Derek, and Maddie came a cropper, and that was just a rear ending from Hoggy, just straight into the back of the Ford Mustang. That was not a look that you want to be having in a 25-minute race. It is a sprint, but it's also not a 5-lap race, so you've just got to keep your head down and keep pushing. Maddie will not be happy about that one at all. It was a pretty heavy hit into the wall, so definitely a bit of damage, as well as now we look to Lee Perkins versus Eda Nick. This is a battle we did nearly see last race. We saw it on the last lap of race number 1, and now they're battling it out for the podium with the imminent arrival of Steve Reese, Longy, and Hoggy is, oh no, not Hoggy, he's had the moment. So with the imminent arrival of Steve Reese and Longy at some stage as well, surely this is a battle for track position you want to take. You want to get ahead before the others arrive and join the fight as well. Reese is past Toba Sire. Longy will follow suit, I'm sure. As actually, did Longy get held up in that incident? It looks like it. He's out of the train, so maybe he had to hit the brakes to avoid Maddie and Derek as well. So I think it's just Steve Reese. I think that Longy will catch up, but Steve Reese is going to catch a lot quicker as he's already on the back of Dave Ross as they head down towards turn 1. Ferrari versus Mustang, but not the Ferrari-Mustang combo we're used to seeing. Up and down the grid battling away. Ross very wide, and now Steve-O's going to sail the long way round to turn 2 and then gets the inside for turn 3 and sweeps through. A beautiful move there from Steve Reese to move up into 5th position and just gets the power down and flat out now through the sweep as the BMW's battling away in front of him. So we'll go on board with Steve Reese for a lap, and we'll end it at the straight next lap as well. So here is a pure onboard lap with Steve Reese as he tries to close in on the 2 BMWs in front of him. I was still on mute. All right, here we go. Steve Reese has arrived on the scene, and there's a three-way BMW fight ahead of him as well. This is not something we're used to seeing in ACC. There's not normally three BMWs in such close contention, but now Steve Reese in the Ferrari is going to try get his nose in as well and join into the party here. So it's Swooper, Lee Perkins, and Eden Nick and Steve Reese battling away here for the P2 position in this race. Reese is going to try his best to carve through as cleanly and as fast as he possibly can to begin chasing the leader, and already he has a run on Eden Nick, and he's going to try the long way round to the sweeper, but he's not able to get it done as they head towards lap number 5. There's 16.5 minutes to go here, and it's all to play for as Perkins hunting a move on Swooper down towards turn 1. Can he pull it off? I think he can. He's going to look up the inside. They're still wheel to wheel as they head towards the apex, but Perkins is inching ahead. He gets it done, and Eden Nick is under pressure from Steve Reese, but it wasn't quite close enough to go for a move as they head through the long sweeping right-hander, and Eden Nick bombs up the inside as Swooper runs deep, and that allows Steve-O to get a switchback as well. He's going to get that one done as they head into the sweeper. A great move there from Steve Reese to take advantage of a mistake from the car in front of him. Eden Nick just a little bit too overzealous to try and get a move done on Swooper. He was trying not to lose time, and he was trying to get a buffer car, but it hasn't worked, and now Steve Reese has a brilliant run on Swooper as well. He's going over the grass. He's trying to be Alex Albon in Spa 2019. He's going to overtake into the braking zone now down the inside. Is he able to pull it off? Not quite. He wasn't able to use the grass to get through, but he has a great run through the next set of S's, and he's going to try and put the pressure on. He's going to go down the inside and an unorthodox place, but he gets it done on Swooper, moves up into the top 3 positions, and now Eden Nick is also trying his best, and he does get through on Swooper. A phenomenal string of racing there from everybody involved, and now Steve Reese has Lee Perkins at his disposal to try and close up to and try and overtake before he has a big challenge ahead of him to close up to Demon Boost. Can we see what we saw in Misano with the car in P1 in the reverse grid race, just about pulling away enough to hold on to the win, or will we see quite the opposite with the car in who gets to P2 from the back of the grid, closing up and taking the win? It's all for us to find out. There's still 15 minutes to go in this race. Steve-O showing no signs of slowing down, and there's a long way to go as Perkins is closing in on Boost as well himself, let alone with Steve Reese right up his tail as well. They're going to battle it out, hammer and tong, I'm sure. I'm sure that Lee Perkins and the sensational BMW will want to hold on to a P2 position, but it is going to be a matter of when and not if in this scenario. Reese is the quickest car on the grid with Matty out of this race, and now he's closing in, and he's trying to go as fast as he can to get past Perkins. Steve-O on the hunt here as they head towards the braking zone. Will he go down the inside? No, he's not quite close enough here as they head through the middle sector. Perkins putting on a masterclass of defensive driving. He's trying to close into the car in front, but when you have a Ferrari filling up your rearview mirror, there's not much more you can do but just try and defend. In Indianapolis, it is a great bit of track through the second and third sector. The first sector definitely, I think, lets the track down a little bit, but it's a very hard track to overtake at, which is the main part, especially in big cars like GT3 cars. It's so tricky. Despite all the racing we've seen, getting past a car is not an easy feat. You have to have a lot of pace over the car in front of you to try and get past. So let's see what Reese can do. He's very close behind Perkins. Will Perkins make his car as wide as a dump truck on a Tuesday, blocking the road? Let's see as they head down through turn number 1. No, not quite. He's trying to attack though. He's putting the pressure on. He's just opening up every corner more. Perkins has a wobble. Reese now might see his opportunity. He's a lot more open on the entry. He gets the cutback, and he's now on the inside of the sweeper. It's an aggressive place to go for a move, but that is Lee Perkins wide and off the racetrack, and that's Steve Reese through. Lee Perkins dropping back, but Reese has gone wide, and that invites both of the BMWs back through, and all of the progress he just made just goes down the window, and Reese loses out to Eden, Nick and Perkins, but Perkins loses out to Nick as well. It's all kicking off here as they head further and further in, That was a very unlikely mistake there for Reese, but he carried too much speed, ran off the track, and now he finds himself back where he started, with Longy also catching up to the train, and he's right there as well to begin trying to overtake. So this is a battle that is now going to become even more interesting, but this time Reese is not waiting around. He's going to go down the inside of the BMW at the long right-hander. He's going to inch ahead towards the braking zone, and Reese is going to get the place into the braking zone, runs it out wide, just pushes him as far off as he can, and then goes all the way to the inside of the hairpin. Perkins tries to fight it back, but it's unlikely that he will be able to. Reese moves up into the P3 position, and now he's got 1.5 seconds to try and catch up to Ida Nick and get the place that he was just trying to get a moment ago, as now Longy joins in to the party as well. He is now going to be trying to go back past, but Lee Perkins thought about putting the pressure back on to Steve Reese there, but he doesn't go down the inside in the BMW. He's going to sit behind, but Longy and Hoggy are both here actually. Hoggy's closed up as well with all of this battling. It's making the train that much closer, and now Longy will be the next to attack the BMW M4 through the very fast right-hander. The car loves to understeer, it loves to get unsettled, but he's just about holding on. Let's see how he can manage here. Longy trying to put the pressure on the BMW. He gets the great run onto the straight, runs out a little bit to the grass. So does Hoggy in the background as well. Will Longy tried the long way around to the braking zone. I don't think he quite has the track to do it. He tried to put the nose in down the inside, doesn't quite pull it off, as this is an absolutely fantastic battle here for the P4 position, and Hoggy right there as well, just adding an extra element into this battle going on here on lap number 8. The McLaren driver definitely quicker than the BMW, but definitely not by too much. Perkins showing some impressive pace here in race number 2. He wasn't super quick, but he wasn't slow either in race 1, and now he's using that to just pull out all the pace he possibly has to hold the P4 position. It would be an absolutely fantastic result, but he makes a mistake. The BMW has a snap, runs all the way over the grass on the exit as they head across the bricks for the start-finish line, and towards turn number 1 they go. Longy is inching ahead, but it's not done just yet. He's going to try and fight back the long way round as Perkins, but Longy down the inside in the braking zone is going to get that one done. Perkins loses out the place, and now next to attack him will be the Ferrari of Hoggy as they head through the first sector once more, and there is under 10 minutes to go in this race. It's still anybody's guess as to what the final order will be, and the race win isn't tucked and settled either as well, as Ida Nick is only 1.3 seconds behind Boost for the win, and Steve Reese only another 1 second back from that. So it's all going on here in race number 2, and Hoggy trying to put all the pressure on he can, but he's snapping around a lot, not treating his tyres too well here in the Ferrari 296. He doesn't have the best run as they head towards the braking zone, but let's see what he has at his disposal. It's not going to be an inside move at turn, I forget the corner number actually, so I'm not even going to speak, but Hoggy trying to put the pressure on in the end of the second sector, as now they're about to cross the line to the third sector. Hoggy putting all the pressure on he possibly can. He's trying his best, he's trying his hardest. This is for a good result in the race. P5 or P6 either way is impressive, as car number 95, that's Hugs, is causing a yellow flag further down the back, and 47 was also going slow. So that was Tobisire and Hugs potentially coming together further down the back at the end of the top 10, as now we begin another lap here. And now we're going to move to the front battle, as here we go. It's all kicking off. Boost just took advantage of the reverse grid, took the lead. He had over a 5-second lead a few minutes ago, and now it's going to be a three-way fight for the win. Who will take it home? Boost, Ida Nick, or the experienced veteran, the champion multiple times in Fargone? Reese on the back of Ida Nick is also going to be trying to put the pressure on here in Indianapolis, and already Nick trying it the long way round. We saw Reese go wide at this corner earlier on in the race, but he's not going to make the same mistake this lap. He's not going down the inside of anybody. He's sitting behind. He's being as patient as he needs to here in this dying stage. There's still 7.5 minutes just over to go, and it's anybody's guess as to who will take this home. Boost not using all the track. Oh, Steve-O's misjudged the braking. He will cede the position, I'm sure. Yes, he does. A very, very poor moment from Reese, but very good sportsman to let them back through. He won't just leave the track and gain a lasting advantage. And now Longy is also arriving on the back of this battle as well. So this is now a 4-way fight for the win, as Nick just closing up as much as he can. He's going to try to go the long way round, but Demon Boost just going defensive at every corner he can. It's anybody's guess currently as to who will get an overtake and when, but Reese now has a great run on the BMW of Nick. If he gets through here, it'll make his race a lot easier as we head deeper and deeper in, as he doesn't quite have the run on the M4 to seal the deal of a move this time around. But Demon Boost, every single time he heads towards a braking zone, goes defensive. He's just sitting in the middle of the track. He's making his car as wide as humanly possible, but it's to his detriment as well, as he's running wide on the exits of the corners. Boost putting the pressure on the cars behind to get past soon enough, because there is time ticking down. And he's running so wide, but he's running so defensive as they head through the sweeping right-hander. Steve-O and Longy also are going to be putting the pressure on to Nick, so he has to get a move on as well. This is a 4-way fight for the win with 6 minutes to go as they head down towards the straight, as that is a massive mistake there from Boost, and that's going to compromise his exit. Nick takes the lead of the race, and now they're 3 wide towards the braking zone. It's going to be Reese, Boost, and Longy going side by side as they head through the braking zone, and all 3 of them clear the Ferrari, and Demon Boost will now just try and not fall into the clutches of Hoggy 4.5 seconds behind and try not make another detrimental mistake like that, but that is an unfortunate end to his defensive efforts for the race win. But now it's going to be a 3-way fight between these 3, who we see so often on the grid fighting towards the front. Nick, Steve Reese, and Longy, all here, all fighting for the win in Indianapolis, race number 2. Reese wasn't quite able to get the win in race number 1. He came just shy of the win. Matty took it, and now he's once again in that P2 position, but this time he's hounding a BMW and not a Ford Mustang. A bit easier to overtake a BMW than the Mustang in a straight line. So let's see what he can pull off. We know that Nick doesn't have the raw pace that Reese has, but he has a good amount of racing experience. And at a track like this, you can defend. We saw Boost doing it. He has nowhere near the pace of these guys, and he's still putting the pressure on defensively. And now let's see what Nick can do with more pace than Boost had, and a bigger car as well. All playing to his strengths. As Reese trying to get the long way around, there's a slight mistake there from Nick. He hit the grass on the entry. It compromised him. With 4.5 minutes to go, they're still scrapping away. Reese has a good run onto the straight. Will it be enough to attack the BMW? We saw Nick knock out a win one time last season, I believe it was, unless it was another car and I'm confusing it. Can he pull off a miracle again here in season 19? 4 minutes to go. Reese has a great run. He does poke the nose in. He's trying to put the pressure on to the BMW, saying it's your move. You can defend or you can crumble under the pressure. And right now, Nick is soaking it all up here. And now there is under 4 minutes to go. So, Nick leading the way, but he has a hounding Reese behind him, and don't forget Longy either, who's right there in the battle pack. Any sort of move will open up a secondary move as well. So if Reese goes down the inside of Longy, gets it done, that forces, if Reese goes down the inside of Nick, gets it done, Nick will then run wide, and Longy has an advantage to try and get his nose in as well. So it's all going to come down to who makes a move and when, and also how it happens as to what this finishing top 3 is going to be. Meanwhile, Hoggy has caught up to Boost in the background, and that's the battle for P number 4 as well. But we've got to keep our eyes glued to the screen with these 3 battling away. But it looks like Longy's dropping back a little bit compared to Reese and Longy. Reese also has the fastest lap of the race at this stage. He's a 35.720. He's the only driver in the 35s for a personal best lap time in this second race. And that is even faster than Matty's race 1 fastest lap, I think. Or at least it's very close. And last race, Reese didn't even have a 35 best lap time. So he's definitely picking up the pace, getting more used to his Ferrari, getting into a groove, using the slipstream as well. And the battle is raging on here, as there is 2.5 minutes to go. So this will be heading towards the penultimate lap of the race. Last race was 34. Oh, damn. Okay. Really? It was a 34. That's insane. Anyway, I'm forgetting race times. Yeah, I'm not Kimi Antonelli, I guess. Antonelli can recall a pole time from 3 years ago. I can't even recall a race lap from last race. But anyway, battle on here as they head on to the penultimate lap of the race. Nick putting all the pressure he possibly can on Steve-O to force him to make a move. The time is running out. Nick knows if he just defends a little bit more, that Reese will be forced to go for something soon enough, but he makes a mistake himself. He finally crumbles under the pressure, and Reese is going to sweep through, and the defense went too deep, and he has made a crucial error as there's an Aston Martin lapped car out of the way, creating a smoke cloud as Reese sweeps into the lead after what is such an unfortunate mistake there from Nick. He hasn't slipped up all race long, and then finally, at the death of it, he makes a mistake on the penultimate lap, which almost seals the deal for Steve-O to take the win if he doesn't make a mistake himself. But now, the eyes are focused on Longy, who now has an opportunity to try and get past Nick as well, as they head into the braking zone. Longy is the quicker car, but he's also struggling to stay with this little train. He has been maybe just a little bit too rough on his tyres in that McLaren. He's trying his hardest to put the pressure on and take the P2, as there is 51 seconds left on the clock. We have a lap and a sector to go here in round number 3. So let's see. It is going to be Reese leading the way onto the final lap, and as long as he keeps his head down, he should take the victory. But now it's battle on for the P2 place. Longy trying as hard as he can to hound the back of the BMW, but we saw Nick soak up the pressure from Steve-O for many, many laps, but he finally crumbled. But he hasn't been under pressure from Longy for that long, but the pressure's that much higher on the last lap of the race. So let's see how Nick holds on. Let's go for one more lap of racing. Down towards turn 1, no pressure from Longy at that stage. He wasn't quite close enough as they head through the sweeping sector 1. It's such a satisfying sector to get right, but it's also a bit painful to drive if you're not completely comfortable with it. And then sweep flat out through the right-hander and just make sure you get the line right for this next left. Otherwise, you will have a very compromised straight. So you just got to keep it tight, get over to that curb, dab the brakes, and flick it in, and just get the power down nice and early, and you should be safe. But Nick was a little bit wide, but Longy was also wide on entry. So the gap's staying pretty much the same, and time is running out for Longy to secure a P2. But a podium wouldn't be a bad result nonetheless, but it all comes down now to these last 2 sectors. Nick trying his hardest to close out, get away from Longy, but it's not worked on this final lap. But I don't know if there's enough time, if there's enough corners left in the lap for Longy to get the place as he's trying to find the move, but it looks like it's going to go Nick's way for P2, but we'll move back up to Steve-O, who drove a brilliant drive. He started second last on the grid. He has a little bit of a snap for good measure, but he climbed his way through the field. He's going to round onto the oval, onto the straight, and across the brick line, and he's going to win the second race in Indianapolis. Reese is your race winner. Nick is your P2 sitter. Longy gets P3. Hoggy will come home in a P4 position, and Boost holds on for P5. Not a bad result by any stretch of the imagination. Parker holds off Perkins for P number 6. Perkins come home in 7th place. Then Swooper, who started the race on pole position, will get P number 8. And not a bad result at all, as Ross will round the final corner and hold off Tobisire and get P... Wait, no, I'm soaking. I swear I just said Pierre. He'll cross the line. We'll get the final results in a minute. But what a race it was here in race number 2. Race 1 was a great one as well, but race 2 was just that bit better. The reverse grids just really spice up, shake up the action, and make it that much more exciting to watch. With all of the leaders trying to come through, something always goes wrong, and this time, sadly, it was Maddie who got rear-ended by Hoggy and sent her spearing off into a barrier, much to her detriment. And that'll be a massive title blow as well, as the championship fight will continue. to rage on, and that's not a good batch of points you want to be losing, but it's still early on in the season. There's a long way to go. So one more driver to cross the line being Exiled Reaper. He's rounding the final corner now in a BMW M4 GT3, and then we'll get the final race order here in round number 3 for race number 2. So it's going to be Steve-O taking out the win and the fastest lap from Eden Nick, then Longy, Hoggy, Demon Boost, Parker, Perkins, Swooper, Ross, Tobasire, Hugs, Speed Racer, Disco Derek, Exiled Reaper, Lee, Force, and Maddie finishes plumb last. And what a race it was. The drivers putting on an absolute show all night here. And that is going to be all for Fargone Racing GT Challenge Season 19. Round number 3, brought to you by Simsational TV. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the race and the call. And I have been Lindsay Muddle. Good night.